The sound of laughter echoed through the Damascus Rose restaurant's private dining room as I sat perfectly still, my fork hovering over the untouched lamb on my plate. Around the long table, 12 members of the Al-Mansour family gestured animatedly, their Arabic flowing like water over stones, smooth, constant, deliberately excluding me. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. My fiancé Tariq sat at the head of the table, his hand resting possessively on my shoulder as he translated absolutely nothing. His mother, Layla, watched me with those sharp falcon eyes from across the table, a slight smile playing at her lips. She knew. They all knew. The crystal chandelier above cast dancing shadows across the white linen tablecloth as Tariq leaned toward his younger brother Omar, speaking in rapid Arabic. The words flowed easily, casually, as if I weren't sitting right there. As if I couldn't understand every single syllable. "She doesn't even know how to prepare proper coffee," Tariq said, his voice dripping with amusement. "Yesterday she used a machine. A machine. Like we're at some American diner," Omar snorted, nearly choking on his wine. "And you want to marry this one? Brother, what happened to your standards?" I took a delicate sip of water, my face a careful mask of polite confusion. The same expression I'd worn for the past 6 months, ever since Tariq proposed. The same expression I'd perfected during my 8 years in Dubai, where I'd learned that sometimes the most powerful position is the one where everyone underestimates you. Tariq's hand squeezed my shoulder, and he turned to me with that practiced smile, the one he used when he wanted something. "My mother was just saying how beautiful you look tonight, Habibti." I smiled back, soft and grateful. "That's so sweet. Please tell her thank you." What his mother had actually said not 30 seconds ago was that my dress was too tight and made me look cheap. But I nodded appreciatively, playing my part perfectly. The waiters brought out another course, delicate pastries drizzled with honey and pistachios. Tariq's father, Hassan, a distinguished man with silver threading through his dark hair, raised his glass. "To family," he announced in English, one of the few phrases he'd spoken in my language all evening. "And to new beginnings." Everyone raised their glasses. I lifted mine, meeting his eyes across the table. He looked away first. "New beginnings," Tariq's sister Amira muttered in Arabic, just loud enough for the family to hear. "More like new problems. She can't even speak our language, can't cook our food, knows nothing about our culture. What kind of wife will she make?" "The kind who doesn't know when she's being insulted," Tariq replied smoothly, and the table erupted in laughter. I laughed too, a small, uncertain sound, as if I were trying to be part of a joke I didn't understand. Inside, I was calculating, documenting, adding every word to the growing list of transgressions I'd been compiling for months. My phone buzzed in my clutch. I excused myself quietly, standing up from the table. "Restroom," I murmured to Tariq. He waved me away dismissively, already turning back to his cousin Khalid, launching into another story in Arabic. As I walked away, I heard him clearly. "She's so eager to please, it's almost pathetic. But her father's company will be worth the inconvenience." The restroom was empty, all marble and gold fixtures, elegant and cold. I locked myself in the furthest stall and pulled out my phone. The message was from James Chen, my father's company's head of security, and one of the few people who knew what I was really doing. Documentation uploaded. Audio from the last 3 family dinners successfully transcribed and translated. "Your father wants to know if you're ready to proceed." I typed back quickly. "Not yet. Need the business meeting recordings first. He needs to incriminate himself professionally, not just personally." 3 dots appeared, then. "Understood. The surveillance team confirms he's meeting with the Qatari investors tomorrow. We'll have everything." I deleted the conversation, refreshed my lipstick, and studied my reflection. The woman looking back at me wasn't who I used to be. 8 years ago, I'd been Sophie Martinez, fresh out of business school, idealistic and naive, accepting a position at my father's international consulting firm in Dubai. I'd thought I was ready for anything. I wasn't ready for what I found there. Dubai had been a revelation. not the glittering skyscrapers or the luxury cars or the seven-star hotels. Those were just the surface. What changed me was the complexity underneath. The intricate business dealings conducted in Arabic over endless cups of gawa, the unspoken rules of negotiation, the cultural nuances that meant the difference between a successful deal and a catastrophic failure. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time. So if you are enjoying it like this video, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. My father's firm had been struggling in the Middle Eastern market. Too many Western executives who thought they could bulldoze through with American business tactics. Too many lost contracts, too many offended clients. I'd watched deal after deal collapse because no one on our team truly understood the culture, the language, the deeper currents of respect and relationship that governed everything. So I'd learned. Not casually, not superficially, but completely. I'd hired the best tutors, immersed myself in the language, studied the culture with the intensity I'd once reserved for corporate law. I'd spent 8 years becoming fluent not just in Arabic, but in the dozens of dialects, the regional differences, the subtle distinctions that marked someone as truly knowledgeable versus merely capable. I'd lived in Dubai for 6 years, then 2 more years bouncing between Abu Dhabi, Riyadh, and Doha. I'd negotiated contracts worth hundreds of millions of dollars, all while smiling politely as clients assumed I was just another pretty American girl who'd gotten lucky with a corporate job. Let them underestimate me. Their competitors certainly did, right up until I closed deals they thought were impossible. By the time I returned to Boston 3 months ago to take over as COO of Martinez Global Consulting, I could discuss everything from Islamic finance to regional politics in formal Arabic that would make a scholar proud, and switch to the casual dialect of the streets without missing a beat. And then I'd met Tariq Al-Mansour at a charity fundraiser. Handsome, charming, educated at Harvard Business School. He'd approached me at the bar, his accent barely noticeable, his English perfect. He'd asked about my work, seemed genuinely interested in my opinions about international markets. He'd been attentive, funny, respectful. He'd also been very careful to mention, within the first 20 minutes, that he came from a prominent Saudi family with extensive business holdings across the Gulf region. Real estate, construction, import-export, the kind of diversified empire that had weathered economic storms and emerged stronger. I'd been intrigued. Not by his money. My father's company had made sure I'd never need to worry about finances. But by the business opportunities. Martinez Global had been trying to break into the Saudi market for years, but the connections required, the trust that needed to be built, had always been just out of reach. Tariq could be that bridge. Over the next month, he'd courted me with the perfect blend of Western romance and old-world courtesy. Expensive restaurants, thoughtful gifts, long conversations about everything from literature to politics. He'd told me about his family, about growing up between Riyadh and Boston, about the challenges of straddling 2 cultures. He'd never once spoken to me in Arabic. My family is traditional, he'd explained during our 6th date as we walked along the harbor. They'll want to get to know you, but it might be overwhelming at first. They'll speak mostly in Arabic among themselves. Don't take it personally. It's just comfortable for them. I'd nodded, understanding. I appreciate you warning me. I'll do my best to make a good impression. He'd smiled, kissed my forehead. Just be yourself. They'll love you. What he'd meant was, just be the naive American girl who doesn't understand what we're saying about you. The first family dinner had been 2 months ago, shortly after Tariq proposed. I'd accepted his proposal not out of love. I'd learned long ago to be pragmatic about relationships, but because it made strategic sense. A merger of families and businesses, his connections in the Middle East, our consulting expertise. It could be worth tens of millions in new contracts. My father had been skeptical. You don't love him, Sophie. Love is a luxury, I'd replied. This is business. Business shouldn't require you to marry someone. Then think of it as an extended negotiation. I'll know within 6 months if he's genuine or if he's using me for access to our company. Either way, I'll get what I need. What I'd gotten was an education in just how wrong I'd been about Tariq. That first dinner, I'd sat quietly as his family had discussed me in Arabic as if I were a piece of furniture. His mother had criticized everything from my hair to my clothes to my career. His father had questioned whether I could bear strong sons. His siblings had made jokes about white women being too independent, too opinionated, too American. And Tariq had joined in, laughing, adding his own observations. About how I was so focused on my career that I barely cooked. About how I'd need to learn my place in a proper household. About how he was doing me a favor by offering marriage. Because at 29, I was already approaching the age where my options would dwindle. I'd smiled through all of it, asking occasionally what everyone was saying, accepting Tariq's translated lies with apparent gratitude. Then I'd gone home and made a list. The bathroom door opened, and I heard Amira's voice, speaking rapid Arabic to someone on her phone. I waited, letting her finish her call, listening as she complained about having to sit through dinner with that American woman who can't even hold a proper conversation. When I emerged from the stall, she was touching up her makeup at the mirror. She glanced at me, her expression shifting to polite disinterest. "The food is wonderful," I said in English, my accent carefully maintained, slightly struggling with the formal tone. "Everything is so different from what I'm used to." "Yes. Well," Amira replied in heavily accented English, "our cuisine is very sophisticated. Not like your burgers and fries." I laughed lightly, as if she'd made a joke instead of an insult. "I have so much to learn. Tariq has been very patient with me." Something flickered in her eyes, surprise maybe, or suspicion. But it passed quickly. "My brother is very kind. Too kind sometimes." I washed my hands slowly, watching her in the mirror. "I hope your family will help me understand your culture better. It means so much to Tariq that I fit in." "Fitting in," she said carefully, "requires more than just wanting to. It requires understanding, respect, knowing your place." "I understand," I said softly, meeting her eyes. "I really do." She studied me for a long moment, then turned back to her lipstick. "We should return to dinner. It's rude to leave the men waiting too long." We walked back together in silence. As we approached the private dining room, I could hear the men's voices, louder now, emboldened by wine and the certainty of privacy. "She's a means to an end," Tariq was saying. "Her father's company has connections throughout Asia and Europe that we need. Once we're married, those doors open for us. After a few years, if it doesn't work out, divorce is always an option." "We'll have extracted what we need by then," Omar laughed. "And she has no idea?" "None. She thinks this is a love match. She actually believes I'm charmed by her ambition and her career." His voice dripped with mockery, as if I'd actually want a wife who thinks she's my equal. I paused just outside the doorway, letting Amira enter ahead of me. Taking one more breath, settling my expression into something soft and adoring. Then I walked back to my seat, smiling at Tariq as he pulled out my chair. "Did I miss anything interesting?" I asked. "Just boring business talk," he assured me, his hand finding mine under the table. "You know how we are when we get together." "I love watching you with your family," I said, and meant it. I loved watching him reveal exactly who he was. "You're so different with them. More yourself." He squeezed my hand, pleased. "They bring out the real me." Yes, I thought. They certainly do. Dessert arrived, small cups of strong coffee and dates stuffed with almonds. Hassan raised his cup in another toast, this time speaking entirely in Arabic. "To my son's clever match. May he extract every advantage from this alliance, and may the American girl remain blissfully ignorant of her purpose." Everyone laughed. I raised my cup, smiling uncertainly, waiting for Tariq's translation. "My father wishes us happiness and prosperity," Tariq said smoothly. "That's beautiful," I murmured. "Please thank him for me." As the family continued their conversation, weaving between English and Arabic depending on whether they wanted me to understand, I thought about the recordings James's team had been making. Every family dinner for the past 2 months captured on the custom jewelry I wore, the necklace Tariq had given me, which I'd had modified by our security team, the earrings I'd purchased myself, fitted with surveillance technology so sophisticated it could pick up conversations from 20 feet away in a crowded room. Every word, every insult, every revelation of their true intentions, documented and translated by our team of linguists. But I needed more than personal grievances. I needed business documentation. Because this wasn't just about Tariq's betrayal. It was about the bigger picture I'd uncovered 3 weeks ago. Tariq's company, Al Mansour Holdings, had been in secret negotiations with one of my father's biggest competitors, the Blackstone Consulting Group. They were planning a joint venture that would specifically target Martinez Global's Middle Eastern clients, using information that Tariq had been gathering from casual conversations with me about our business strategies. I'd discovered it by accident, finding an email on his laptop when he'd left it open in my apartment. He'd been careless, confident in his assumption that I wouldn't understand the Arabic portions of the correspondence. The email had laid out the entire plan. Use the engagement to get closer to Martinez Global, extract client lists and strategic plans, then launch a competitive venture that would undercut our pricing and poach our major accounts. It was brilliant, actually, and it would have worked perfectly if I'd been who he thought I was. Instead, I'd copied the files, brought them to my father and our legal team, and we'd begun planning our response. Not a defensive one. We didn't play defense at Martinez Global. An offensive one. A complete dismantling of Al Mansour Holdings' business operations, using every legal mechanism available. But we needed concrete proof of the corporate espionage. The emails alone weren't enough. They could claim they were preliminary discussions, nothing actionable. We needed recordings of the actual business meetings, evidence of Tariq actively sharing proprietary information. That's where tomorrow's meeting with the Qatari investors came in. Tariq had told me he had a conference call scheduled, nothing important. What he actually had was an in-person meeting with Sheikh Abdullah Al Thani and his investment team, where he planned to present detailed analysis of Martinez Global's Middle Eastern operations, analysis based entirely on confidential information I'd supposedly shared with him in intimate conversations. What Tariq didn't know was that Sheikh Abdullah was actually a longtime friend of my father's. They'd worked together for 15 years, built a relationship based on trust and mutual respect. When my father had reached out to explain the situation, the sheikh had been outraged at the disrespect shown to both our family and to the business relationships he valued. He'd agreed to take the meeting, to let Tariq incriminate himself thoroughly, while recording every moment. Sophie? Tariq's voice broke through my thoughts. Where did you go? You looked so far away. I blinked, refocusing on his face. Sorry, I was just thinking about how lucky I am. Your family is wonderful. Layla, his mother, said something in Arabic that made the entire table laugh. Tariq translated. She says you're very sweet. What she'd actually said was that I looked like a cow staring at a new gate, stupid and confused. Your mother is so kind, I replied, smiling warmly at Layla. I hope someday I can communicate with her better. Maybe I should take some Arabic lessons? The suggestion landed like a stone in still water. The conversation paused. Tariq's hand tightened almost imperceptibly on his fork. That's not necessary, he said quickly. You're so busy with work, and Arabic is very difficult for Americans to learn. The grammar alone would take years to master. Your fiancé should focus on learning to be a good wife, Hassan said in English, his voice carrying the weight of pronouncement. Language skills are less important than understanding proper duties. I nodded obediently, but I'd seen what I needed to see, the flash of concern in Tariq's eyes, the quick glance he'd exchanged with his mother. They didn't want me to learn Arabic. They needed me ignorant. The dinner wound down slowly, multiple rounds of tea and coffee, more desserts I didn't touch. The men moved to one end of the table, discussing business in lowered voices. The women gathered at the other end, and for the first time that evening, Layla addressed me directly in English. My son tells me you work very hard, she said. Her accent thick, but her words carefully chosen. Yes, I love my job. I'm very fortunate to work for my father's company. And after marriage? You will continue this work? It was a test. I could feel all the women watching me, waiting for my answer. Tariq and I have discussed it, I said carefully. We want to make decisions together, as partners. Amira snorted softly. Layla's expression didn't change, but her eyes grew colder. A wife's first duty is to her husband and family, she said. Career is for men. Women should support, not compete. Of course, I murmured. Family is most important. You agree then? After marriage, you will leave your job? This was the moment. I could see Tariq watching from across the table, pretending not to listen. This was what he wanted, confirmation that I would give up my position at Martinez Global, making it easier for him to access our business from the inside while I played housewife. I want whatever Tariq wants, I said softly. His happiness is my priority. Layla smiled, satisfied. Tariq relaxed visibly. I'd passed the test, confirmed their assumptions about my malleability. What they didn't know was that my father had already promoted me to COO last month, with a guaranteed 10-year contract and equity stake. I wasn't going anywhere. Finally, mercifully, dinner ended. We said our goodbyes in the restaurant's elegant foyer, air kisses and promises to see each other again soon. Hassan gripped Tariq's shoulder, saying something in Arabic about sealing the deal quickly before I got any ideas. In the car, Tariq was effusive. You were perfect tonight, Habibti. My family absolutely loves you. Really? I was so nervous. I felt like I couldn't understand half of what was happening. That's exactly right, he said, then caught himself. I mean, that's natural. It takes time to feel comfortable with a new family, especially when there's a language barrier. Tell me honestly, I said, turning to face him. Did they like me? Your mother seemed, I don't know, distant? She's always like that at first. It's her way. But trust me, she was very impressed. She told me, he paused, choosing his words carefully. She told me you seem very sweet and respectful. Those are qualities she values highly. I smiled, relieved. That means so much. I really want your family's approval. You have it, he assured me, his hand finding my knee. Now stop worrying. Let's go back to your place. I've barely seen you all week. I let him take me home, let him kiss me at the door, let him assume that everything was going according to his plan. When he left around midnight, claiming an early morning meeting, I immediately went to my laptop. The files James had sent were waiting, encrypted and secure. I downloaded them, poured myself a glass of wine, and began reading through the transcripts from tonight's dinner. Every insult, every joke at my expense, every strategic discussion about how to best exploit my father's company, all of it documented in perfect detail, translated by our team's Arabic specialists, time-stamped and verified. But it was the conversation from the men's end of the table, during the last half hour of dinner, that made me set down my wine glass. The Martinez contract in Abu Dhabi, Hassan had said to Tariq. You're certain you can acquire the details? Absolutely. Sophie tells me everything. She thinks she's impressing me with her business acumen. She doesn't realize she's giving me exactly what we need to undercut their bid. And the Qatar expansion? They're planning something with Sheikh Abdullah's group. I know. I'll have the full proposal by next week. Sophie's been working on it constantly. She'll share it with me, she always does. She trusts me completely. Good. Once we have that information, we can present our own version to the Sheikh. Blackstone is ready to move as soon as we give them the data. My father's Qatar expansion. The project I'd been developing for 8 months, involving potential contracts worth over $200 million. The proposal I'd been careful to keep completely confidential, even from my own team, until we were ready to present. Tariq thought I'd shared it with him. He thought I'd been talking about it during our intimate moments, pillow talk and casual conversation. I hadn't told him anything about Qatar. I'd been testing him for the last month, mentioning a fake project in Kuwait instead, sharing just enough false details to seem genuine. And I'd watched as those exact details appeared in intercepted communications between Tariq and his Blackstone contacts. He was taking information I wasn't even giving him and running with it. Which meant he had other sources. Someone inside my father's company was feeding him real intelligence. We had a mole. I opened a secure chat with James. We have a bigger problem than we thought. There's someone inside feeding Tariq real information. He knows about Qatar, and I never mentioned it to him. The response came quickly. Your father suspected as much. We've been monitoring communications. 3 potential suspects narrowed down to 1. We'll have confirmation tomorrow. Who? Richard Torres, your father's senior VP of Middle Eastern Operations. I sat back, my mind racing. Richard had been with the company for 12 years. He'd been my father's right hand in the Dubai office, had mentored me during my early years there. I'd trusted him implicitly. Are you certain? I typed. 90%. His personal finances show regular deposits from a shell corporation we've traced back to Al Mansour Holdings. We're documenting everything before we move. Your father wants to handle this carefully. We take down both Tariq and Richard simultaneously. Make an example of corporate espionage. An example. Yes, that's exactly what this needed to be. I closed the laptop and walked to the window, looking out over Boston's glittering skyline. Somewhere out there, Tariq was probably congratulating himself on another successful evening of deception. Richard Torres was probably sleeping soundly, confident in his betrayal. Both of them certain that they'd outsmarted everyone. My phone rang. My father, how was dinner? He asked without preamble. Enlightening. They think they've won. Good, let them think that. The meeting with Sheikh Abdullah is tomorrow at 2 p.m. We'll have teams in position to document everything. Tariq will walk in thinking he's closing the biggest deal of his career. He'll walk out facing criminal charges. And Richard? Security is already preparing the termination paperwork. We'll confront him tomorrow morning, give him the option to resign quietly or face prosecution. Either way, he's done. I want to be there, I said. When you confront Richard. Sophie, you don't have to. I want to be there, I repeated. He used me. He used the relationship we built in Dubai to get access to confidential information. I want to see his face when he realizes we know. My father was quiet for a moment. All right, 8 a.m. in my office. Bring coffee. It's going to be a long day. After we hung up, I stood at the window for a long time, thinking about the past 8 years. About the younger Sophie who'd gone to Dubai full of idealism and ambition. About the woman who'd learned that in international business, as in life, the most dangerous position is the one where people think they know you. Tariq had made the mistake of assuming that because I was American, I was unsophisticated. That because I was a woman, I would be compliant. That because I loved my career, I would be easy to manipulate with promises of business connections. His family had made the mistake of thinking their language was a shield, that their casual cruelty would go unnoticed and unpunished. They'd all made the mistake of underestimating me. Tomorrow would be a day of revelations. Tomorrow, Tariq would discover that the naive American fiancé he'd been mocking in Arabic for months spoke his language better than he spoke English. Tomorrow, Richard would learn that loyalty was not optional, it was required. Tomorrow, Sheikh Abdullah would make it clear to everyone in the Middle Eastern business community that you don't steal from your partners, you don't disrespect your colleagues, and you certainly don't try to cheat families who've spent decades building trust. But tonight, I allowed myself a moment of satisfaction. I thought about Layla's sharp eyes, Hassan's dismissive tone, Amira's casual contempt. I thought about Tariq's hand on my shoulder, possessive and confident. Even as he told his brother I was merely a means to an end. I thought about tomorrow's family dinner, the one already scheduled for next week. The one where Tariq would have to explain to his family why the wedding was canceled, why his business deals had collapsed, why Sheikh Abdullah would no longer take his calls. The one where, if I chose to attend, I could finally respond to every insult, every joke, every cruel observation in perfect Arabic. But I probably wouldn't attend. I had better things to do than watch them unravel. I had a company to run. My phone buzzed one more time. A message from an unknown number, but I recognized the UAE country code. Sheikh Abdullah. Your father told me what's happening. I'm sorry you had to endure this disrespect. Tomorrow we will make it right. In our culture, we have a saying, Al-Kadhab yuftadah, the liar will be exposed. Tomorrow, Miss Martinez, the liars will be exposed. All of them. I smiled, typing back in Arabic. Thank you, Your Excellency. I look forward to tomorrow's meeting. And to justice. His response came immediately. You speak Arabic? This gets better and better. I can't wait to see the look on that boy's face. Neither could I. I finally went to bed around 2 a.m., setting 3 alarms to make sure I was ready for the 8 o'clock meeting. As I drifted off to sleep, my last thought was of Tariq at dinner, laughing with his family about how I couldn't even prepare proper coffee. Tomorrow, I'd show him exactly what I could prepare, a complete and total destruction of everything he'd built on lies. The morning sun cut through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my father's corner office like a blade. I arrived at 7:45, 2 large coffees in hand, to find him already there, reviewing documents with our head of legal, Patricia Chen, and James from security, Sophie. My father looked up, his expression grim. Richard will be here in 10 minutes. He thinks this is about the Singapore contract negotiations. I set the coffees down on his mahogany desk and took my usual seat in the leather chair by the window. Patricia handed me a folder. It was thick, organized with colored tabs, every page a damning piece of evidence. Bank records, she explained, her voice crisp and professional. 18 months of regular deposits, always on the 15th of each month. $40,000 each time. The payments are routed through 3 shell corporations, but we trace them all back to Al Mansour Holdings. I flipped through the pages, seeing Richard's financial life laid bare. The timing of the deposits corresponded perfectly with major strategy meetings, client presentations, proposal deadlines. He'd been selling us out systematically, methodically, for over a year. There's more, James added, sliding his tablet across the desk. We pulled his email records, legally through IT with proper authorization. He's been forwarding confidential documents to a personal Gmail account, then accessing them from coffee shops in his home. He thought he was being careful, but our system logs everything. The office door opened and Richard Torres walked in, all smiles and expensive suit. He was 52, distinguished-looking with gray at his temples, always impeccably dressed. He'd been the one to teach me how to navigate Dubai's business culture, how to read between the lines in Arabic negotiations, how to build relationships that lasted decades. Daniel, good morning, he said warmly to my father, then noticed the rest of us. His smile faltered slightly. This is quite the welcoming committee for a contract discussion. Sit down, Richard. My father's voice could have frozen water. Richard sat, his eyes darting between us, calculating. He was smart enough to know this wasn't about Singapore. My father slid the folder across the desk. I'm going to give you one chance to be honest with me. One chance to explain yourself before this becomes a legal matter instead of a personal betrayal. Richard opened the folder. I watched his face as he processed what he was seeing. The bank records, the email logs, the traced communications with Tariq. He went very pale, then very still. Daniel, I can explain. Explain how you've been selling confidential information to Al Mansour Holdings for 18 months? My father's voice was quiet, which made it more terrifying. Explain how you betrayed a company that trusted you, mentored you, made you wealthy? Explain how you used your position to steal from us? It wasn't like that. Richard's hands trembled slightly as he closed the folder. You don't understand the pressure I was under. My daughter's medical bills, the divorce settlement, I was drowning in debt. So you committed corporate espionage? Patricia cut in sharply. You do understand that's a federal crime? That we have grounds for both civil and criminal prosecution? Richard's face crumbled. Please, I know I made a terrible mistake. I was desperate. They approached me, offered me a way out of my financial problems. I never meant for it to go this far. Who approached you? I asked quietly. It was the first time I'd spoken since he entered. He looked at me, and I saw genuine shame in his eyes. Tariq Al Mansour, about 2 years ago at that conference in Dubai. He somehow knew about my financial situation. He was sympathetic, offered to connect me with some investors who could help. Then the offers started, just small things at first. General information about market trends, nothing specific. But the money was good and I rationalized it. Then it escalated. Did you know he was engaged to Sophie? My father asked. Richard's eyes widened. No, not until 3 months ago. By then I was in too deep. When I found out, I tried to pull back, I swear. But Tariq made it clear that if I stopped cooperating, he'd expose everything. I'd lose my job, face legal action, destroy what little reputation I had left. So instead, you decided to keep betraying us, I said. You helped him target my father's company, fed him information about our strategies, our clients, our proposals. You knew he was using me and you said nothing. Sophie, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. His voice broke. You have to believe me, I never wanted to hurt you. When I realized what he was doing, using the engagement to get access to the company through you, I felt sick. But I was trapped. You were trapped by your own choices, my father said coldly. You had a dozen opportunities to come to me, to explain your situation, to ask for help. Instead, you chose to steal from us. James leaned forward. The information you provided about the Abu Dhabi contract, the one we lost last month to a competitor who somehow undercut our bid by exactly 3%. That was you? Richard nodded miserably. That contract was worth $68 million, James continued. Your betrayal didn't just hurt this company financially. It cost jobs. The team we had to lay off because of that lost revenue. 15 people, Richard. 15 families who lost their income because you were selling us out. The silence in the room was suffocating. I thought about those 15 employees, people I'd worked with, people who'd had no idea their jobs were being gambled away by someone they trusted. Here's what's going to happen, Patricia said, pulling out a new folder. You're going to resign, effective immediately. You'll sign this non-disclosure agreement, which includes a clause preventing you from ever working in international consulting again. You'll also sign this confession, detailing every piece of information you provided to Al Mansour Holdings and when. And the criminal charges? Richard's voice was barely a whisper. That depends on your cooperation, my father said. If you sign these documents, provide us with every detail of your dealings with Tariq, and testify if needed in our lawsuit against Al Mansour Holdings, we'll agree not to pursue criminal prosecution. You'll lose your career, your reputation in this industry, but you won't go to prison. And if I refuse, then we'll file criminal charges this afternoon, Patricia said flatly. Wire fraud, theft of trade secrets, conspiracy. You'll be looking at 10 to 15 years in federal prison. Your choice. Richard stared at the documents for a long moment, then reached for a pen. His hand shook as he signed, page after page, destroying what was left of his career with each signature. When he finished, my father stood. James will escort you to your office. You have 30 minutes to collect your personal belongings. Your company computer, phone, and access cards stay here. Security will be watching you the entire time. When you leave this building, you don't come back. Ever. Richard stood slowly, looking years older than when he'd walked in. At the door, he turned back to me. Sophie, for what it's worth, I am truly sorry. You deserved better. From all of us, I didn't respond. There was nothing to say. After he left with James, I let out a long breath. Patricia began organizing the signed documents, preparing them for our legal proceedings. My father came to stand by the window next to me, looking out over the city. You okay? He asked quietly. I'm angry, I admitted. Not surprised, but angry. He taught me so much in Dubai. I trusted him. I know. That's what makes betrayal so painful. It has to come from people we trust. Enemies can't betray you. Only friends can. Tariq's meeting with Sheikh Abdullah is in 6 hours, I said, changing the subject because dwelling on Richard's betrayal would only distract me. Are we ready? Sheikh Abdullah's security team has the conference room prepared. Video, audio, everything will be recorded. We'll have representatives from the Ministry of Commerce there as well, the Sheikh insisted. He wants it clear that this kind of corruption won't be tolerated in business dealings involving Gulf investors. I checked my phone. Messages from Tariq, sent early this morning. Good morning, beautiful. Can't wait to see you tonight. Dinner at our place? I'll cook. My meeting got moved to a bigger venue. Big investors interested in our proposal. This could be huge for us. I love you. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. I showed the messages to my father. He read them, his jaw tightening. Our proposal, he repeated. The audacity of this man. He thinks he's already won, I said. He thinks the hard part is over. That he's successfully stolen our business plan and is about to present it as his own to Sheikh Abdullah's investment group. Pride before the fall, Patricia observed, looking up from her documents. Classic. My phone rang. Tariq, don't answer, my father advised. I have to. If I suddenly start avoiding him, he might get suspicious. I swiped to accept. Good morning, Habibti. Did you get my messages? His voice was cheerful, excited. I did. Congratulations on the bigger meeting. That's wonderful news, I know. This could be the breakthrough we've been waiting for. And I wanted to ask you something. What are you doing this afternoon around 2? My pulse quickened. Nothing planned? Why? I want you to come to the meeting. As my fiancé, these investors value family, and I think having you there would make a good impression. You don't have to say anything. Just smile and look beautiful. Can you do that for me? I looked at my father, who was listening to the conversation on speaker. He nodded slowly. Of course, I said. I'd be honored. Should I dress formally? Business formal, yes. Conservative. Remember, these are traditional Middle Eastern investors. Modest is best, I understand. Text me the address? I'll pick you up at 1:30. Love you. Love you too, I said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. After I hung up, Patricia was smiling. He wants you there. Perfect. He's going to incriminate himself in front of you. He thinks I'm a prop, I said. Something to display to prove he's a respectable family man. He has no idea what he's walking into. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of preparation. Patricia briefed me on the legal implications of what we were doing, making sure every action we took was completely above board. James confirmed that Sheikh Abdullah's security team had everything in place. My father made calls to key board members, ensuring everyone understood what was happening and why. At noon, I went home to change. I selected a navy blue suit, tailored and conservative with a cream silk blouse. Professional, modest, exactly what Tariq had requested. I added the pearl necklace he'd given me for our 6-month anniversary, the one modified with surveillance, technology, and matching earrings that James's team had also equipped with recording, devices insurance, in case something went wrong with the Sheikh's official recording equipment. At 1:30 exactly, Tariq's silver BMW pulled up outside my building. I took one last look in the mirror, checking my appearance. The woman looking back at me was calm, professional, perfectly composed. Inside, I was a storm. I slid into the passenger seat, and Tariq leaned over to kiss me. You look perfect. Exactly right, thank you. I'm excited to see you in action. I've never been to one of your business meetings before. Just remember, these men are very traditional. If they speak to you, be polite but brief. Let me do the talking. And please don't mention your work. They prefer women who are more focused on family. I understand, I said, playing my role. I'm just there to support you. Exactly. He pulled into traffic, one hand on the wheel, the other finding mine. I'm so glad you're here for this, Sophie. Today is the beginning of something big. Our future together starts now. If only he knew how right he was. We drove to a luxury hotel in downtown Boston, one known for hosting high-level international business meetings. Tariq pulled up to the valet and a doorman immediately opened my door. Inside, the lobby was all marble and crystal, hushed and elegant. The meeting is in the executive conference suite, Tariq said, guiding me toward a private elevator. Top floor. These investors rented out the entire level for privacy. In the elevator, he checked his appearance in the mirrored walls, adjusting his tie. I've been working on this deal for months. If today goes well, Al Mansour Holdings will be positioned to dominate the Middle Eastern consulting market. Blackstone is providing the initial capital, but once we have the clients, we'll be unstoppable. The clients? I asked innocently. Companies currently working with other consulting firms. We're going to offer them better terms. more specialized knowledge of the region, stronger connections. We'll take market share from competitors who've gotten complacent. That sounds very competitive. Business is competitive, Habibti. The strong survive. The weak get crushed. He smiled at his reflection. We're going to be very strong. The elevator doors opened onto a quiet hallway, plush carpet muffling our footsteps. A man in a dark suit, clearly security, stood outside a set of double doors. Mr. Al-Mansour, he said with a slight nod. They're waiting for you. Tariq squeezed my hand. Ready? I smiled at him. Ready. He opened the doors and we stepped into the conference room. It was larger than I expected, with a long table that could seat 20 people. But only 4 people were currently present, all standing near the far end of the room. Sheikh Abdullah Al-Thani stood at the head of the table, impressive in traditional white thobe and black bisht. Next to him were 2 men I recognized from photos, ministry officials from Qatar's Department of Commerce. And standing slightly apart, arms crossed, was my father. Tariq froze. I felt his hand tighten painfully on mine. Mr. Al-Mansour, Sheikh Abdullah said in English, his voice carrying the weight of authority. Thank you for coming. I believe you know Mr. Daniel Martinez already. And of course you know his daughter, your fiancé. Tariq's face had gone white. He looked from my father to me, confusion and dawning horror in his eyes. I don't understand, he said. This meeting was supposed to be an opportunity for you to present stolen business strategies as your own? Sheikh Abdullah cut him off, his voice cold. Supposed to be your chance to profit from corporate espionage? Please, Mr. Al-Mansour, tell us what this meeting was supposed to be. Sophie? Tariq turned to me, his voice shaking. What's going on? Why is your father here? I pulled my hand from his grip and took a step back. When I spoke, it was in flawless Arabic, the formal dialect used in serious business dealings. You wanted to know what this meeting is about, Tariq? It's about exposure. It's about justice. It's about what happens when you underestimate the people you're trying to cheat. His face went from white to gray. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. You seem surprised that I speak Arabic. I continued in his language, watching him process this revelation. Did you really think I spent 8 years in Dubai and didn't learn? Did you think I was so incompetent that I couldn't master the language of the business I was conducting? You never said, you never asked. You assumed. You assumed I was ignorant, that I was stupid, that I was a means to an end. I switched back to English, including the others in the conversation. You assumed wrong, Sheikh Abdullah gestured to the chairs. Please sit. We have much to discuss, and I want everything documented properly. One of the ministry officials activated a recording device on the table. Tariq remained standing, frozen in shock. Sit down, Mr. Al-Mansour, my father said quietly. Or we can have this conversation at the police station instead. Your choice. Tariq finally moved, sinking into a chair. I remained standing, walking to my father's side of the table. Sheikh Abdullah opened a folder. Mr. Al-Mansour, we are here because you attempted to defraud multiple parties through corporate espionage and misrepresentation. You cultivated a relationship with Miss Martinez with the explicit intention of stealing confidential business information from her father's company. You conspired with a senior employee of Martinez Global Consulting to obtain proprietary strategies and client lists. And you planned to present this stolen information today as your own work, in the hopes of securing investment from my group. I can explain. You will explain, the sheikh cut him off. But first, you will listen. I have known Daniel Martinez for 15 years. We have conducted business worth hundreds of millions of dollars, built on trust and mutual respect. When he came to me with evidence of your scheme, I was personally offended. Not just on his behalf, but on behalf of every legitimate business person in the Gulf who works hard to maintain our reputation for fair dealing. He pulled out documents, spreading them across the table. These are transcripts of your conversations with Richard Torres, Martinez Global's former senior VP. Mr. Torres has confessed to everything and provided detailed testimony about your arrangement. These are bank records showing payments from your family's holding company to Mr. Torres. These are emails discussing how to use your engagement to Miss Martinez to access confidential Information? Tariq stared at the documents, his face a mask of disbelief. And these, Sheikh Abdullah continued, pulling out more papers, are transcripts of your family dinners. Every word you and your family said in Arabic, mocking Miss Martinez, discussing how to exploit her and her father's company. Did you know she understood every word? Tariq looked at me, and in his eyes I saw the moment everything clicked into place. Every dinner, every conversation, every casual cruelty spoken in Arabic while I sat there smiling. He'd been exposing himself all along. The wedding is canceled, I said simply. Obviously. Sophie, please, let me explain. He started to stand. Sit down, my father commanded. You'll speak when Sheikh Abdullah tells you to speak. One of the ministry officials spoke for the first time, his English formal and precise. Mr. Al-Mansour, you should understand the gravity of your situation. Corporate espionage between entities involving Gulf state investments is taken very seriously by our government. The evidence here suggests multiple violations of international business law. Beyond the legal issues, Sheikh Abdullah added, there is the matter of your reputation. In our business community, word travels fast. By this time tomorrow, every major investor and company in the Gulf will know what you attempted to do. Your family's business relationships built over generations will be destroyed. Tariq found his voice finally, desperate. Sheikh Abdullah, please. My family had nothing to do with this. This was my mistake alone. Don't punish them for my errors in judgment. Your family mocked this woman in their home, the sheikh said coldly. Your mother, your father, your siblings, all of them participated in this disrespect. They knew what you were doing and encouraged it. I heard the recordings myself. The cruelty, the calculated manipulation. That is not how we conduct ourselves. That is not the culture we claim to represent. He stood. And everyone else rose with him except Tariq, who seemed incapable of movement. Martinez Global Consulting will be filing a civil lawsuit against Al-Mansour Holdings for damages resulting from corporate espionage. The amount will be substantial. We estimate somewhere in the range of $200 million, based on lost contracts and damaged business relationships. Whether criminal charges are filed will depend on Mr. Al-Mansour's cooperation with authorities. I'll cooperate, Tariq said quickly. Whatever you need. Please, I'll do anything. You'll start, my father said, by providing a complete accounting of every piece of information you obtained from Richard Torres and from Sophie. Every document, every strategy discussion, every client detail. You'll identify every person at Blackstone Consulting who was involved in this scheme, and you'll testify under oath about all of it. I will. I swear. And you'll stay away from my daughter, my father continued. No contact, no messages, no attempts to explain or apologize. If you come near her, if you try to reach out to her, I will personally ensure that criminal charges are filed immediately. Are we clear? Yes, perfectly clear. I looked at Tariq, this man I'd almost married, seeing him clearly for the first time. Without the charm, without the carefully constructed image, he was just a small man who'd thought he could cheat his way to success. You asked me once why I worked so hard, I said quietly. Why I cared so much about my career. You said it like it was a character flaw, something that made me less desirable as a wife. But this is why, Tariq, because I never wanted to be dependent on someone like you, someone who sees people as tools to be used and discarded. He had nothing to say to that. Sheikh Abdullah walked to the door, the ministry officials following. Mr. Martinez, Miss Martinez, my car is waiting to take you back to your office. Mr. Al-Mansour will remain here to provide his initial statement to these officials. I believe we are finished with the pleasant part of this conversation. As we left, I took one last look at Tariq, sitting alone at that massive conference table, surrounded by the evidence of his betrayal. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. The doors closed behind us with a quiet click that sounded like finality. The ride back to the office was quiet. Sheikh Abdullah had departed for the airport, but not before embracing my father warmly and promising continued partnership. Trust is everything in our business, he'd said. You protected that trust. We will remember. My father glanced at me from the driver's seat. How are you holding up? Better than I expected, I admitted. I thought I'd feel something, anger, satisfaction, maybe even sadness. But mostly I just feel relieved. Like I've been holding my breath for months and can finally exhale. That's normal. You've been living a double life, pretending to be someone you're not. That takes a toll. My phone had been buzzing constantly since we left the hotel. I finally looked at it. 17 missed calls from Tariq's mother. 12 from Amira. 8 from Omar. A flood of text messages, progressively more frantic. The most recent was from Layla, sent 10 minutes ago. What have you done to my son? What lies have you told? Call me immediately. I showed it to my father. He read it and shook his head. They still don't understand. They think you're the villain in this story. Should I respond? That's entirely up to you. Legally, there's no reason you can't. But emotionally? Sophie, you don't owe them anything. I thought about it for a moment, then typed out a response in Arabic. I told no lies. Your son's actions spoke for themselves. Everything that happened today was a consequence of his choices, not mine. Do not contact me again. I sent it and immediately blocked all of their numbers. What did you say? My father asked. I told her the truth. In Arabic. Let her choke on that, he smiled grimly. That's my girl. Back at the office, Patricia was waiting with updates. The lawsuit is filed. Al Mansour Holdings will be served within the hour. I've also prepared a cease and desist letter for Blackstone Consulting. They're trying to distance themselves from the whole affair, claiming they had no knowledge of the stolen information. Do we believe that? I asked, not for a second. But proving their direct involvement will take time. For now, we've made it clear that any attempt to use the information Tariq provided will result in immediate legal action. What about Richard? He's cooperating fully. Provided us with copies of everything he sent to Tariq, along with detailed timelines. It's more than enough to build our case. As agreed, we won't pursue criminal charges, but his career in this industry is over. I nodded, feeling a complex mix of emotions about Richard. He'd betrayed us, yes, but at least he'd owned it in the end. Unlike Tariq, who'd tried to deflect and minimize until confronted with overwhelming evidence. There's one more thing, James said, entering the office. We've been monitoring communications from the Al Mansour family. Hassan, Tariq's father, tried to call Sheikh Abdullah about an hour ago. The sheikh didn't take the call, but his office released a statement to several business networks in the Gulf. He handed me a printout. I read it aloud. Sheikh Abdullah Al Thani's investment group wishes to clarify that we have no business relationship with Al Mansour Holdings, nor will we consider any future dealings with this entity. Recent events have demonstrated a fundamental lack of integrity that is incompatible with our business standards. We encourage all partners in the region to conduct their own due diligence. That's a death sentence, my father said quietly. In that community, a statement like that from someone of the sheikh's standing, Al Mansour Holdings will be radioactive. They earned it, Patricia said simply. My phone rang again, this time from an unknown number with a Boston area code. Against my better judgment, I answered. Sophie Martinez. Layla's voice was ice and fury. You will meet with me today. We need to discuss this situation like adults. I switched to Arabic, my tone matching hers. Mrs. Al Mansour, there is nothing to discuss. Your son committed corporate espionage. He used our engagement to steal from my family's company. These are facts, not opinions open for debate. There was a sharp intake of breath. You speak Arabic? All this time? All this time. Every dinner, every conversation, every cruel joke. I understood all of it, a long pause. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. Less imperious, more calculating. Then you understand this was just business. Nothing personal. In our world, we do what we must to protect our families, our interests. In my world, Mrs. Al Mansour, we call that fraud. And we prosecute it. You're making a mistake. My family has connections, resources. We can make this very difficult for you. Your family had connections, I corrected. Past tense. Sheikh Abdullah's statement has already circulated. By tomorrow, every major player in the Gulf will know exactly what your son attempted. Your threats are empty. You vindictive, she started, but I disconnected. My father raised an eyebrow. Threats already? Hollow ones. She's panicking. Their reputation is destroyed, and she's trying to salvage something, but there's nothing left to salvage. Over the next 3 days, the situation unfolded with devastating efficiency. The lawsuit proceeded, with Al Mansour Holdings unable to mount any credible defense against the mountain of evidence we'd compiled. Their lawyers contacted ours about settlement discussions, but Patricia held firm, full damages plus legal fees. Nothing less. Blackstone Consulting, facing their own potential legal exposure, terminated their relationship with the Al Mansours and offered to cooperate with our investigation in exchange for limited immunity. Patricia accepted, extracting even more documentation of Tariq's scheme. The story, while not made public in detail, rippled through the international business community. Quietly, efficiently, the Al Mansour family found themselves isolated. Contracts were canceled. Partners withdrew. Investors backed away. Hassan tried to reach my father twice, looking for some way to negotiate. My father refused both calls. On the 4th day, I received a letter. Not an email, not a text, but an actual handwritten letter delivered by courier to my apartment. It was from Tariq. I almost threw it away without reading, but curiosity won. I opened it standing by my kitchen counter, coffee growing cold beside me. "Sophie," it began, "I know I have no right to ask for your forgiveness, or even for you to read this. But I need to say these things, even if only for myself. You were right about everything. I did use you. I did mock you. I did view our relationship as a transaction. I told myself it was just business, that everyone operates this way in international dealings. I convinced myself that because you came from privilege, because your father's company was successful, somehow that made it acceptable to steal from you. I was wrong. Not just strategically wrong, but morally wrong. You didn't deserve what I did, what my family did. You showed up to our dinners with an open heart, trying to build connections with my family. And we repaid you with cruelty and contempt. The worst part is that I started to actually care about you, somewhere along the way. Not at first. At first you were exactly what I told my family, a means to an end. But as months went by, I saw your intelligence, your dedication, your strength. I started to admire you, even as I was betraying you. I could have stopped. I should have stopped. But I was too proud, too committed to the plan, too convinced that I could have it both ways. The business advantages and the relationship. My family has lost everything. My father won't speak to me. My mother blames me for destroying our reputation. Omar and Amira have been disinvited from social events because of their association with me. Hassan's construction company lost 3 major contracts in 1 week. I'm not telling you this to gain sympathy. I'm telling you because you should know that there were consequences. Real ones. The kind that will follow my family for years. I'm leaving Boston. Going back to Saudi Arabia, though I don't know what kind of life awaits me there now. Sheikh Abdullah's statement has made me persona non grata in business circles, and my father's anger has made me unwelcome in my own family. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know that I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. Not just for getting caught, but for doing it in the first place. You deserved someone who valued you for who you are, not for what you could provide. I hope someday you find that person. I hope you continue to succeed in business, continue to prove that underestimating you is the worst mistake anyone can make. And I hope, years from now, when you think of me at all, it's with the satisfaction of knowing you beat me at my own game. You were always smarter than I gave you credit for. That might be the truest thing I ever say about you, Tariq. I read it twice, then set it down on the counter. It was a good apology as apologies went. Sincere, accepting responsibility, not making excuses. The kind of apology that might have meant something if it had come earlier. If it had come before the betrayal was exposed. But it hadn't. This was the apology of someone who'd been caught, not someone who'd genuinely changed. The timing revealed its limitations. I took a photo of the letter, documentation, always documentation, then shredded it. My father called that afternoon. Settlement offer just came through. They're offering the full $200 million plus legal fees. They want this over before it goes to trial and becomes public record. What do you think? I think we've already won what matters. The money is important, but the real victory is the message we sent. You don't steal from your partners. You don't use people. And you certainly don't assume that someone's silence means ignorance. Accept the settlement, I said. Let's close this chapter. Agreed. 3 weeks later, I stood in the same Damascus Rose restaurant where it had all started, but this time in a different private room. This time with different guests. Sheikh Abdullah had returned to Boston for business and insisted on hosting a dinner. A proper one, he said, to celebrate justice and partnership. My father was there, along with Patricia and James. Several other business partners from the Gulf region. People my father had worked with for years. People who'd heard the story and wanted to show their support. The food was spectacular. The conversation flowing easily between English and Arabic. At one point, Sheikh Abdullah raised his glass. To Sophie Martinez, he said in Arabic, then switched to English, who taught us all a valuable lesson. Never assume you know the full story. And never ever underestimate a woman who's been quiet for too long. Everyone laughed, glasses clinking. Later, as the evening wound down, Sheikh Abdullah pulled me aside. You know, my daughter is about your age. She's studying international business at Oxford. I told her your story, with your permission, of course. She said she wants to be like you when she graduates. I'm honored, I said sincerely. The world is changing, he continued. The old ways, the assumptions about what women can and cannot do, about who deserves respect and who doesn't, they're dying. Good riddance to them. The future belongs to people like you, who earn respect through competence and intelligence, not gender or family name. Thank you, Your Excellency. That means more than you know, he smiled. Your father tells me you're being promoted again. Vice President of Global Operations? Executive Vice President, I corrected. Effective next month. Well-deserved. Very well-deserved. I drove home that night thinking about the journey. From that first dinner where I'd sat silently while being mocked in Arabic, to tonight, being honored by one of the most respected businessmen in the Gulf. The arc of it was almost poetic. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown international number. I almost ignored it, but something made me open it. This is Amira. I'm writing without my family's knowledge. I want you to know that I'm sorry for how we treated you. Watching our family's business collapse, seeing my father's shame, my brother's exile, it's made me think about the choices we make and the consequences we face. You were stronger than all of us. I hope someday I can be that strong. Please don't respond to this message. I just needed to say it. I read it twice, then did exactly as she asked. Didn't respond. But I didn't delete it either. I saved it, a small monument to the fact that sometimes people learn. Sometimes they grow. Sometimes consequences actually teach the lessons they're meant to teach. The engagement ring Tariq had given me sat in a safe deposit box at my bank, along with all the other jewelry from our relationship. Eventually, I'd sell it, donate the proceeds to a charity supporting women in business. But not yet. For now, it could stay locked away. A reminder of what I'd survived and what I'd learned. I'd learned that silence can be a strategy. That being underestimated is sometimes an advantage. That knowing when to reveal what you know is as important as the knowing itself. I'd learned that 8 years in Dubai had given me more than just language skills and business acumen. It had given me patience, the ability to play the long game, to wait for exactly the right moment to show my cards. Most importantly, I'd learned that I didn't need a relationship to be complete, didn't need a partner who saw me as inferior or useful. I was enough on my own, more than enough. The city lights glittered outside my window as I poured myself a glass of wine and settled onto my couch. Tomorrow, I'd be back in the office, working on the Qatar expansion that Tariq had tried to steal. Next month, I'd take on my new role, leading operations across 3 continents. But tonight, I allowed myself a moment of simple satisfaction. The kind that comes from knowing you played the game better than anyone else at the table, and won without compromising who you are. My phone buzzed one last time. My father, Proud of you, kiddo. Always have been, always will be. I smiled, typing back, learned from the best. And I had. Not just business tactics or negotiation skills, but something more fundamental, the understanding that respect isn't given, it's earned. That silence isn't weakness, it's sometimes the most powerful response. And that the best revenge isn't anger or cruelty, it's success. I raised my glass to the empty apartment, to the city beyond, to the future that stretched ahead full of possibility. To new beginnings, I said in Arabic, the words feeling natural and true. This time, the new beginning was entirely my own. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up.